Mighty Historians, Mr. Holland here. We are quickly finishing up the year. I know how antsy you are. I know how antsy I am. I know that we are already starting to check out for summer. And hopefully, you saw my email the other day in terms of grades and what's coming up. And you'll have a bit of understanding as to where we are going after May 22nd. And so that's all there. We have a great video today. We're going to finish up our alumni quotes, our alumni advice. I've got a great quote for you. And then today I'm going to tell you, kind of in relation to what I did yesterday, was how did I get into teaching? That was my thing yesterday. By the way, nobody watched it, and grades are coming, so I don't know. Give a little love. Just kidding. Just kidding. But a really good story of how I got into teaching. And I absolutely love what I do. And today I am talking about why I love history. And so we'll get to that in a moment after our quotes or our advice. And then tomorrow I'm going to just share a little bit of a more personal side of my life, and that's my journey with cancer, with brain cancer. And it's kind of extraordinary. I did not plan it this way, but 6 years ago today, like this day, May 12th, 2014, I was actually diagnosed with brain cancer. And so today is a very reflective day. It seems so close and yet so far away. And I do have to say, it's happening right now, but my eyes are tearing up just looking back on what has happened, on what um, life has been, what life is going to be, and you know what? It's just extraordinary in many respects. So I'm going to share that with you tomorrow. But today is why I love history, and hopefully you've been able to see over this year that I love history very much. Excuse me, and just tying those two things together. But first we have our last alumni advice, and the first quote from Kristen. And Kristen, I'm just gonna throw you under the bus. I hate your quote. I hate it, and you'll understand why after I read it. I love Kristen, hate the quote. So Kristen says the only thing constant in life is change, and if you know me, you know that I don't like change. I think most of us, the majority of us, don't like change. But her quote is so true. And the reality is that change is just a part of life. And I hate it. So, anyway, thank you for the quote, Kristen. It's good when we can actually learn and live in reality. Because yeah, life changes. If you are still living in, another decade, let's come up to present and let's move on together. Okay. Um, Next is Carissa, and Carissa says, she says a couple things, a couple great things. The first is, what are you going through right now? A breakup, not speaking to a friend, will not matter in 5 years. Trust me. So please don't put too much energy into it, and put that energy into something else. And the reality is yeah, 5 years from now, it is not going to matter. It's not even going to be a thought on your mind. Next one, she says, is you will change your major maybe once or twice, and that's okay too, as long as your career will be something that you love. And we talked about that yesterday. So if you need to go back and watch yesterday's where I talk about, actually, I never changed my major, but after I graduated college, I did change my career. And so go back and I think, do something you love. Do it. Okay. Next one, we've got two left. She says, try not to focus on what people think about you, because honestly, you may not even talk to those people after high school. And the reality is, most likely, you're going to go to college. You're going to make some great friends and relationships that are going to last far longer than your friendships in high school. And that's not a bad thing. I have very fond memories of me and my friends in high school, and I do keep in touch with many friends from high school, but I would not say that I'm close with my friends from high school. Move on. And I'm just going to say, move on. It's a big step in life. And I know people who are still stuck in high school. And I'm, like still stuck in high school. Like, it's like, okay, let's move on. Let's move on. So it's okay if you're not close with them after high school. And then the last one, and I think this is a very, very significant, a great quote or great advice. Carissa says, lastly, please treat people how you would want to be treated and think before you speak. And I think that's the golden rule that hopefully you have learned since you were in high school or since you've been growing up, and that's treat people the way you want to be treated. Um, it, it's easy. It really is. And so often, I think sometimes when I've interacted with someone who is not so very nice, I'm like, you know what? I so want to treat you the way you're treating me. Um, and I have to hold my tongue. I have to step back, and it's really hard. So treat people the way you want to be treated. Super easy, and it makes all the difference. It really does. Okay, so I have been watching, and I do it about twice a year. I watch Lord of the Rings. It's a great documentary. Some people call him a movie. It's a documentary. It's all real. It's all good. Okay, whatever. And so I'm in the middle of that right now, and where I'm talking about today why I love history. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to share a great Lord of the Rings quote with you all, and it fits so perfectly as to why I love history. So here we go. Um, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know who's saying this. It's just a quote I found on the internet. Okay, it says, "Don't adventures ever have an end? I suppose not. Someone else always has to carry on the story." And that is the beauty. The beauty of history is that it's a story. It's the story of us as people. It's the story of humanity. And so I'm just going to share a few things with you as to why I love history. And if you watched yesterday's, I'll say episode, I guess if I could say it, yesterday's video, I talked about why I teach, why I'm a teacher. And I shared two loves with you. And a big one was I love people. I adore people. I've sometimes prayed, like, I'm like, God, when I get to heaven, can I just sit and have coffee with people and just get to know them? Because I just if I just love it. I just love it. And I think if that could be a job like on earth, like maybe I could go to Mr. Crawford and be like, hey, can you pay me you know money, and I'll just sit and I'll just chat. I'll just talk. It'd be fantastic. I would love to do that. Um, but humanity is the only creature on this earth that actually has history. I mean, you could look at the grizzly bear. The grizzly bear has history, okay. Um, you know, the grizzly bears don't keep track of their history. I mean, they might keep track of where the good food is or where the good hibernation resorts are, but they don't keep track. The birds don't really keep track of history as much as people do, and it really sets us apart. And one of the things that I've really I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Um, so when we look at history, we have to look at people, men and women who make choices, make decisions, do things that impact us today. And if you remember on my boards, my whiteboards at school, on the two middle ones, the question, our essential question for the year is, how did we get here? How did we get here to May 12th, 2020? And what was it about the past that's connecting to the future? Almost like it's like, and I haven't done this as an adult, but do you remember as a kid and you got dominoes and you'd set them up in a way, and then you hit one and it does, it's whatever design you do, and it just knocks them all over. That's history. Is one domino touches another, touches another, touches another. If you look at that first domino, that's way back when in history as we've studied today, and that last domino, that's us. There's this impact, there's this theme, there's this thread through history that one person makes a choice, another person, it's just it's there, it's sequential. And some of the history that we have studied is it may be a very, 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 very small impact, and then others have huge impact. And it's just extraordinary to me how we work as humans. Another thing that I've loved, whether it's looking at old pictures, looking at old, um, films, is wondering, okay, what is life like in that time? So, for example, I think it was last week, I watched a documentary on the 1904 World's Fair, and there. You'll have to ask me in person, but there's a real funny connection of myself and my aunt to the 1904 World's Fair. So when you stop by next year, you ask me about the 1904 World's Fair and my family. And I was just watching these people, and it was extraordinary what they built, what they went through. And I just look at history and I'm like, trying to place myself in that time. Like, if I lived during that time, what would it be like? What would I see? What would I smell? What would I eat? What is life, and how is life so very different then as it is now? And so I love that connection of trying to understand a life, a time period that is so very, very different from ours. Um, I love seeing how people have shaped our world. Um, and I'm just going to go through, I've just got a few bullet points here, but I love looking at our country in particular and how we were established. We're not um, a perfect country by any means, but we do have an extraordinary history in our founding fathers and families that really took on a risk to try something new. Um, and we can look back and we can say, yeah, that was imperfect. But challenge to you is to look at all the other options that are out there. You're like, yeah, okay, not perfect, but it's better than any other governments or choices or, situations that other people had. We're not living in a tyranny. We're not living in a dictatorship. Um, our government, our politicians, you don't work for them. They work for us. And I love that idea. I love that idea that throughout all of history you have an absolute monarch, a king or a queen that can say, you know what? I want to get rid of all people who are wearing socks today. And tomorrow I'll get rid of everybody who's wearing blue jeans. They can do that. Okay. It's extraordinary to me that there were a group of people who said, you know what, enough is enough. The power really is with the people. And so I just love that. It's imperfect. I think our founding fathers realized, we're not perfect. We can't solve all of these issues um, at this time. And so we're going to leave things for future governments and future people to solve. And I don't think that was a bad thing. Another thing I love architecture, and I love um, how people built not just shelter, not just survival, but these incredible structures. And we don't really build things like we did in the past anymore. Yeah, they might be beautiful and big and whatever, but they just don't have a beauty and I'll say that they don't have a craftsmanship that humanity used to have. And so I love looking back at architecture. I love looking back at old buildings because it's just extraordinary to me how they did these things. And without a lot of the modern things that we have, um, I love how um, some wrote and communicated for the masses, trying to engage the people. I think of Martin Luther trying to get um, a pure faith out to the masses who had been deceived. You can think of, Abraham Lincoln writing for the common person. Um, you can think of certainly some authors writing just for the few, the selected few. And I know we don't appreciate our literacy, the ability to read, the ability to respond, the ability to think and reason. I know we don't appreciate that as much anymore, but I love that idea that back in the day, someone said, you know what, we need to read. Everybody needs to learn to read. Everybody needs to learn to communicate and reason and to make decisions on their own because no one was able to do that before. The leader said something and you did it. You didn't think, you didn't question, you didn't reason. Well, is that the best decision? And I just love that we can do that. We can reason. And I love when we've talked in class about certain things like, well, what do you guys think about what so and so is writing? Like we've talked about, I'm just going to say Karl Marx and the thought of, okay, this is a great idea, but it doesn't work. We've talked about Thomas Hobbes. Um, okay, it doesn't work. Who's going to give up their rights and their powers? And we've talked about John Locke and thinking, oh, John Locke, yeah, that works. That works. But we need to train people to reason and think and make those decisions. Um, I've just got a few things left. And so I'm just going to read what I thought. I was just trying to make sense of it. So often individuals, as I should say, so often as individuals or collectively, so governments or both parties make such bad decisions. And yet, in some rare moments, we rise above and bring about profound change. And I think of, um, you know, most of the decisions made by, I'm going to say, both parties, either party, both, are not really good decisions. But sometimes together, keyword together, um, we really can do amazing things. And I look back on World War II. Um, Probably for the most part, we put politics aside back then, and came together to fight a common enemy. I look at, and you're going to do an assignment for 9/11, and I look at that and the few years that followed of how united we were together, um, in that working for a common good, sacrificing of ourselves, big and small, for the good and the benefit of someone else. We don't do that anymore. We are so divided. It's horrible. Um, and I think back in this, and this is where I'm gonna end. But the idea of legacy, the idea that men and women in the past have left something for us to carry on. And as you think about, okay, you've got 2 years left at West Ranch, how are you going to make West Ranch a better place? How are you going to make um, Santa Clarita a better place before you head off to college? How are you going to make your college a better place? What legacy are you going to leave? And even at the end of our lives, what are you going to leave? Because you know what? Life is, I'm going to say it, you don't want to hear it, like the change. I don't want to hear it. Life is not about you. Yes, you have a great individual life, but how can we make life better for someone else? How can we give a little bit of ourselves for the sake of someone else? And I hope that, my hope is not that at the end of my days you remember me, but that you were encouraged, that I gave you the push and the ability to be the person that you are, to help play probably a very small part in that. And um, that's my hope. That's my goal. And through history, through looking at people and looking at, okay, how did we get here to today? It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary, and I hope that you appreciate that. I hear so often from people that I meet, um, they're like, I wish I would have paid more attention in high school. And I wish I would have paid more attention in high school, even though I did love history back then. And so there's a little bit of my heart. I shared my heart yesterday with my career. I share my heart today with why I love history. And you're going to see a very, very, how do I want to say, a very deep part of my life tomorrow when I share a little bit of my journey with brain cancer. So, you guys go have a great day. AP Euro, don't forget we have a Zoom meeting at 2. And love you guys, and go make it a great day. See you later.